So today's date is Monday, December 6th, 2021. My name is Tori Otten, and I am the archival specialist for the Warren County Record Center and Archives.
My name is Jennifer Baker, and I am the Deputy Archivist for Warren County Record Center and Archives.
Okay, and today we are interviewing Tom. So if you would like to please introduce yourself for us.
My name is Tom Harris, and I was born in Akron, Ohio, and in 1936. So do the math. And I grew up in Akron, and I went to parochial high school called St. Vincent then, not St. Vincent, St. Mary. Heard of LeBron James?
Oh,
okay.
We went to the
very
same school
interesting.
together.
There you go.
We didn't go together though. And my formative years were in Akron, and we had a farm outside of Akron, where near the Akron Canton Airport. And my father was an insurance salesman for Prudential, and my mother was a house mother. I had a younger brother and an older brother, dad, myself, and lots of animals and stuff like that. So she kind of took care of things around the house and the farm, and Dad kind of kept us chore time, kept us busy that way. And I have, when I say Akron is where I lived up until I was 21. And when I was 21, I had an older brother who was on the highway patrol, and I was looking at the fire department, and I was on the called Green Township Fire Department. It's small fire agencies, police agencies. Everybody was part-time except for the chief, and I was on that. So I was kind of debating, to go to Canton, see if I could get on the fire department down there, because that was just down the road. City of Canton was, and anyhow, I ended up at the patrol post in Akron and got an application, filled it out, and kind of like the rest was history, and that was in 1957. And I got assigned to the academy in October of 57. And I graduated from the academy in January of 58 and got assigned to Cambridge as a troop. Then they were patrolmen, and there were not any women. And lots of women, but there are no women troopers. And I was at Cambridge for about 6 or 8 months, and I was single. And they had a guy in Bridgeport, which is across the river from Wheeling, and he was down there and wanted to come to Cambridge, and had a family and had a house and stuff like that. And like I said, I was single, and the lieutenant was district commander, and called me in there and said, "Hey, we're gonna transfer you to Bridgeport." Why? Because again, it was just one of those things. And he told me what the story was, that the troop over there wanted to come back to Cambridge. So I got transferred to there, and in September, I believe it was, of 58, and in September of 59, I got a friendly letter from Uncle Sam. So I got drafted in the Army, and I went to Fort Knox, and I went overseas. I tell everybody, I said, where were you at? And I said, well, I went overseas to Kentucky, to Fort Knox, and I was down there for 2 years, and it was not a great experience. It was like, I'm a police officer. And I was in an MP, they just put me in the MP company, but it was just driving around, couldn't do nothing. You just drove around in a police car and didn't do nothing. And I was very unhappy, but again, things worked out. And I got a couple of good assignments, so I can't really complain that much. I got put on an AWOL apprehension team for a short time, and then they had summer camps for reservists and National Guard units down Breckenridge, Camp Breckenridge, which was a Second World War Army post, and they kept German prisoners there. So I got assigned to that for summer camp. And then I came back at the end of summer and back to Fort Knox and back into the company, and I was assigned to the Provost Marshal's office. And which was kind of a nice gig. And I was in that for 6 or 8 months. And the guy who was the colonel's driver, the Provost Marshal, was a full bird colonel, which carries a lot of stroke. And he was, like me, was a draftee, and his time was up, and they called me and said, well, you know, would you be interested in becoming colonel's driver? Yeah, why not? You know, different, something to do. And so I did that until my time was up, and I got out. And I got out on a Thursday morning. And this, to me, is where it got exciting, because I got out on Thursday morning and came up. My mother lived in Cincinnati then. She was working for the feds. My dad had died, and she was working for the feds in Cincinnati stockyards. So anyway, I came up to Cincinnati, and my younger brother was getting ready to graduate from Roger Bacon. So I spent the night with them, and then early Friday morning, I was up in Adam, and I was in Columbus to get my job back. And went into headquarters and got into the personnel office and talked to the captain, and he said, we weren't expecting you. And I was like, what do you mean? I said, well, no, we just weren't expecting to. We knew you'd be coming, but we didn't know when or anything like that, because in those days, I think you had 30 days to go back on your job. I said, I happen to need a job today. And, you know, in a way, and just kind of playing games, you know, kind of break the ice and have a good time. And so anyway, I says, we're not ready for you. How about, come back Monday, and we'll have all the paperwork ready, and da-da-da-da-da. And in the meantime, we've got a couple spots that are open, and, when you come back, think about it, come back and tell us where you'd like to go. And you can have it. It sounds pretty good. And one of them was at just north of Akron at Ravenna, and the other one was at Delaware. And I was going with my high school sweetheart at that time, and went up and spent the night with her and her mother and myself. And, we had a nice talk, and, things are back doing whatever. So I go back in there Monday morning to get my job and do the paperwork and all that kind of stuff. And the captain wasn't there, and there was a young sergeant there, and he's interviewing me, da-da-da-da-da. And when he got done with that, he said, oh, by the way, you're signed to Cincinnati.
Not anywhere close to Akron or
Well, you get that
Delaware.
right. And there's no interstates.
Yeah.
I mean, Route 42 was kind of like the main road from Cleveland to Cincinnati.
Man.
And now it's almost a 5-hour drive just to the farm. But a long ways. But anyhow, I was kind of shocked. I said, I talked to the captain. He said, I could go either or. He says, you're gonna like Cincinnati. So Cincinnati, here I come. So I got assigned to the Mount Carmel post, which is on the east side of Cincinnati. And I was down there from 61 to 64. And at that time, starts the history in Warren County. And Bud Nelson, did you ever meet Nick? Nick Nelson?
I didn't.
I never got to meet him.
Yeah, well, you're too young probably.
Yeah.
Main reason. But Bud Nelson was a politician in a way. I mean, he was a politician. And the interstate was getting ready to open part of it from Columbus south to 275. And there was no post here. And Warren County was by the patrol. There was 4 or 5 posts took care of the activities going on here that patrol-wise in the county. And the Mount Carmel post took care of Sharonville to 11 and down 123 to Bland. And then we hit Claremont County, so we had all that space. And Xenia took care of the one part, the north part, and the east part was the Wilmington Post. The west part was Butler County, Post 9, and then troops from Dayton would come down. So this thing was kind of a mishmash.
Yeah, that's a
But it
wide
was-
area.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know, it was a long drive, really, from Mount Carmel to get up here. It was probably just in itself, you know, maybe a 30-minute drive
Yeah.
to get up here. I said there was no interstates. I mean, nice roads, but no interstate, so you really couldn't hustle up here. Then when you got up here, you know, it was just us. And there was myself and one of my classmates were the first two, I think it was called Subpost. And we were the first two in Ohio at that time. And started a program, and the pep talk was, you know, it's just you guys, and yeah, we know who you are and know what you're capable of, and the county's ready for you. And the post, you know, we're gonna build a post in a year or so, but, you know, start building up the troops. So that's how I got here. And I came up here in March, I think it was, or April of 64. And like I say, Bud was the director and had a lot to do with what was going on politically wise with the Republican Party, since he was the chair of the party. And yeah, it was really nice. I mean, for me, I was single, and yeah, it was just a good meal. I asked to come up here, and I got what I asked for. Like I said, my other classmate, he had been he was a captain in the Second World War in the Army. So yeah, he was a super nice guy, and loud and boisterous. But, you know, we had a good, you know, worked well together. So everything was great. And I think we were here. He lived in Monroe, so he didn't have to move up. I did, and I rented a room off a lady who was a hostess at the Golden Lamb. And you know, it was one of the things for older ladies to be hostess at the Golden Lamb. And it was nice. But anyhow, that was what my start was. You know, I say I was here, so I came here in April, I think it was June or July. They transferred a guy from a 3rd Troop from the Dayton Post down here. And he was from Hillsborough, Highland County. And so now 3 of us. And we in those days, they had 2 cars for every 3 troops. So if somebody goes off on time off, you know, you just took his car and used it till he came back, and then you went to the next, you know, got into the 2nd car for the days off. And we did that for, well, probably almost a year, and then we got a 4th guy. And then they were starting to build the post. And I had Wayne Henry, he got promoted and left. They sent another new guy in, so there was still 3 or 4 of us then. And things were going good. I got promoted, got transferred to senior, and I had gotten married in that year's time, 2-year time, whatever it was, 67 we got married, and we got transferred to Xenia. And it was a busy place like Mount Carmel was. I mean, they were busy because Xenia Post had to write Pat, and it was all in Greene County, so the Xenia Post handled all that traffic. And so it was, you know, a nice move, and it was exciting because there was a lot of things going on and interaction with the other police departments and fire departments, like it was down here, or a lot more activity. And they told me when I got promoted, said they didn't know I was married. Well, yeah, what a good excuse. Said, you know, if you don't want the promotion, when we were building the post, and when we opened the post, yeah, you'll go there. If you just want to go there, you stay and see, and that's your choice. I said, you know, bird in hand, we're 2 in the bush. You know, I already got promoted. You know, you turn those things down and they kind of look at you and it's like, man, I'll take the promotion. So I took the promotion, came back, and we opened the post 2 or 3 months later. Oh no, I'm sorry, almost a year later. So that was really the start and the finish. And once they opened the post, I think we had 15 people maybe. Church that came in from all around the state, but everybody that came here had asked to come to Lebanon. I mean, everything was new, and we're just the 4 of us at that time that also asked to come here. So that was my start in Warren County, and kind of the rest of it was on the patrol was history. I retired in January of '88. So I had 30 years on the job at that time. So at that time when I retired, things were kind of working out time for adventures, additional defense measures, and I had been asked to run for sheriff by different political people. And I need to think about this as a big move, but I'd also planned, when I did 30 years on the patrol, when I had an over the hill club. So anybody had 30 years on, you remember this over the hill club, big deal. But it was something that was limited. There were very few people, and I think I was in the 50s or 60s in numbers of retirees that had gotten 30 years on, and it's still a big deal. I mean, it's just one of those things. So I retired on my 30th anniversary, and which I had planned all along in a way. Once I, you hit a hurdle as you go along. 30 years is a thing, and I did that. So when I got asked to run for sheriff, I need to think about it. So in the process prior to that, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. The sheriff at that time was Bob Dalton, and he had a stroke, and he couldn't do the job, and then he resigned. And at that time, even yet, that when the sheriff dies, retires, or whatever in his term, the party that holds that seat, whether it be a D or an R or an independent, their political group has the right to appoint the new sheriff. And there was a bunch of us, probably half a dozen of us that were in that can put in for it. So I had a big powwow down in the old courthouse, and I came in second. So and I think it was on a Tuesday evening, and I came in second. You got to come in first. So anyway, I got home and cried a little bit, but I'm joking there, but discussed where we were at. I said, got to be looking for a job. Well, I got a call about 8:30 in the morning, and it was from Scarlet Oaks, which is a career center, and the director of Scarlet Oaks, and the Oaks system itself was the largest career center operation in the state of Ohio. They went all the way from Indiana to above Hillsborough in Washington Courthouse. That's how big it was. And anyway, I get a phone call, and it's the director at Scarlet Oaks, which is in Sharonville, one of their campuses. And the gentleman I'm talking to, he says, would you be interested in, come down and talk to us about employment with us? I said, I told him, you have to catch me on a day where I really need a job. So I went down and talked to him, and I got hired. That day I didn't realize I'd been hired until the end of the day. When I went back to, what do you think about it, and I'm impressed. I said, I'd like to work for you. He said, well, you already are. This was your first day. So I taught down there for 4 years, and next generation and next campaign started that 4th year, so I was put my name in the plot file to run. And there was just myself and the high sheriff, and which was Jim Collins, and I came in second again. But I had a job. So anyhow, long run, I ran again, and the sheriff wasn't going to run. Jim Collins I think came down with cancer, as I recall, and he wasn't going to run, and he was going to support 2 of his deputies who had already filed to run, and I had already filed to run anyhow, but against him. But anyhow, he came out and supported the 2 deputies, and I'm out there, but I worked my butt off, and this is a great county. I mean, it's a great county. We'll get into that down the line here. But it's it's a nice county, and as a troop, and as a supervisor, I worked my butt off and took advantage of cameras. I'm not scared of a camera, never was. And just if I needed somebody, I knew they could call me and talk to me or whatever. And, the bosses the post commanders I worked for, they didn't bother them at all. And so I was right. I became recognizable. So anyhow, got into this campaign, and I think just before the election, the primary election, he dropped from supporting 2 to supporting 1, and when the vote came in, I was, I think out of 100%, I had 60% of the vote with 2 other guys, so they split 40%, so they got 20% of average between the 2 of them, and I got 60%, so I was really, floating on the clouds. And I got they had a meeting of the Central Committee that Thursday, and they appointed me because the sheriff's office, he was gone, he vacated the office, so it was open. So I got appointed to fill the unexpired term. And when new term came, I was already in, but everybody gets sworn in each time. So anyhow, that January I got re-sworn in as not as an incumbent, because you're not an incumbent, you just got appointed to fill. So I got appointed, and then I got sworn in for a full term the following January. So when I came here became the sheriff's office was about, and I'm gun decking now, about 60. And when I'm locking arms, I'm not locking you guys out. It's just one of those comfortable positions I get into. But anyhow, that there was about 65 or 68 deputies, or total personnel in the office. And the powers that be, being the commissioners, decided shortly thereafter that they were building a juvenile center up here on the hill. That was going to be built, and they wanted to build a new sheriff's office and jail because of the growth of the county. And at that time, I think in 1960, the population was around 100,000 in the county, but we were growing. That interstate really made a difference. In 75, that combination really made a difference for growth. And I got appointed in 1992. Yeah, 1992. And by then the population was pushing like maybe 130, 140,000.
So I know you mentioned that somebody suggested that you run for sheriff the first time around. What made you want to keep running after that? Like, what interested you about being the sheriff?
Well, I'd want to be sheriff to start with, or, you know, when I first came up, because I worked with a guy at Mount Carmel, yeah, and that was always a play on him was, because he liked coming up here to work. And, you know, going around for sheriff one of these days, and Mount Carmel post was a big post, because we had about 20 guys down there. And, you know, this guy's name was Bob Heck, and I was just kind of always jabbing at him, you know. But when this position opened up, when I came up here, signed as a sub-post person, he had not put in for it, so it was kind of like, I might have a chance one of these years, but yeah, I'm still young. I didn't even have 10 years on that. And so it was just in the back of my head, but anyhow, you know, it kind of fell in, and like I say, Bud had asked me to run against Roy Wallace, and it was like, the story behind that, I'd jump into that one while we're here. My wife's mother was Roy Wallace's office secretary. And Bud knew that. But again, it was this is a good place to be. Yeah, and he was a good listener, and just, you know, and he needed somebody to run against Roy. And Roy had been in, I think 2 or his 3rd term. And he was running for his 3rd term. And it was kind of like, yeah, I wouldn't do it anyhow because of Barney's mother. You know, maybe Bud is crazy. You know, you know better than that. I can't do that. And you know, hey, no problem. Just want to, you know, throw the offer at you. You know, we could almost guarantee you would get it. And he was right in a way, because Roy had competition, did end up with competition, and the fellow who ran against him was a police officer at the city of Franklin, and Bob Dalton was his name, and he won the election, so Roy was out, and Bob was in. I told you earlier, he came down, he had a stroke, and that's how Jim Collins got in. But again, it was just how things went in this county. I mean, it was a strongly Republican and somewhat smaller population of Democrats. But again, big deal. And because, you know, I told you I had about 60% of the vote, so I had a lot of D's that voted for me. I mean, just how, you know, that's facts is facts. But anyhow, we, kind of got off track talking about Oakland and why I didn't take opportunity. But like I say, but he was a super nice guy. He worked for the Western Star. He was a writer, and just a super nice guy. I think he was an embalmer also. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, just a great guy. I mean, very popular. And he also he had been the director of highway safety for Governor Rhodes, and so, you know, get those kind of positions, you gotta have some stroke and some popularity and doing the right things to impress the governor and his staff to say, hey, why don't you look at Bud or whatever. But anyhow, that's the end of that part. So anyhow, I was here, and I got appointed in June of 1992, and I'm the longest serving sheriff in Warren County. I did 4 terms plus the appointed time. So that didn't qualify me, just how it is, longest serving sheriff in the county. And yeah, it's kind of nice, and I had fun. Every job I've had, I've had fun. Now, there's been times where you get choked up, and things happen, and when I retired from the sheriff's office, we had 185 people. So we had a lot of growth, and trying to find good people in the end. We had, and had changed philosophy because of responsibility, vicarious liability issues and stuff like that, to make sure you got good qualified people that have good backgrounds and stuff like that. And the only issue I really had when I came in was I wanted to know who I had as employees. And those prior to way back when, in the late, I gotta think here, probably in the 60s, legislation was passed that sheriffs, when they came in, and prior to that, they fired everybody and kept a few and hired their friends. Just give them a badge and the guns, and you are now a deputy. And that was not good. And like I say, in my background on patrol, everything was pretty much open. I mean, and when I say open, the public could ask questions and want to know about things, and it was taken care of. And things were done right. And so anyhow, my first probably month in office, I read everybody's personnel file, and it was enlightening because most of them, there was no background. The background might be a piece of paper where they did a license check and a records check for Warren County and talked to maybe somebody as a reference, and they got hired. It's no. And we're not gonna do this. So I got the dicks in, and I think we had 3 of them. Nope, excuse me, detectives, and said, this is how we're going to do it. And what I did, plagiarism is not a bad thing in some businesses. So I had my contacts in the patrol post, and before I hired my chief deputy was a guy I worked for, who was a retired captain from the highway patrol. Got a little background on him. My older brother broke him in on the highway patrol on the turnpike. And he come down, and I'm working for him. But anyhow, he was I got him to be my chief deputy, which was a good move. But anyhow, we got the dicks in and had contacted the post for their background file and everything. You got the paperwork, you got the packet itself. Just the packet was probably a dozen pages of things that needed to be answered, things the investigator need to do, and then at the end, the last page was the recommendation. Either they make it or they need some more follow-up, get that done too. But again, we knew who we were getting, and it really, with the detectives, talk to them, they'd never seen that. I said, it's not hard. All you do is follow what the questions or what it says, from 1 to 100 and whatever it might have been. As long as you got the answer, or if you can't get the answer, all you got to write down on DNA. Does not apply or unable to get this information. Wasn't a big deal. But they bought into it. And of course, we ended up with 185 people, and over that 16 years. And
so what was the community's reaction to kind of changing of the process?
Nothing.
For firing? They didn't care?
Well, they cared. But it was like, they could see that things are getting, not that things are bad, don't get me wrong. Not that things are bad, but it was like, this is.
Well, with a growing population, I mean, things.
Well, I say, the population now is what, 240?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so, it's just, we were, have been for a long time the second fastest growing county in the state of Ohio, population-wise. And, just trying to change, we had a lot of good people. I had to fire a couple of people too. I mean, something you don't really like doing, but we had, I had to do it. But there was paperwork that went along with that terminations, that they'd screwed up or whatever, and had their fear warnings that, can't do this, or it's against the law, a couple of people who broke the law, and terminate them. And just how, but when I say, you get the buy-in from the detectives, and then the new people that are being hired, they're passing that word out, because we want good people. They want somebody that they can work with, that they don't have to worry about doing the wrong things and getting them set up to get in trouble. So it was a lot, great buy-in. And at that time, I say when I'm hired, when I became sheriff, the law in Ohio in I think it was 1966, established a criteria of courses that must be taken, the High Peace Officers Training Academy. And that document said that anybody after this date had new people had to have completed the Opata course at that time, whatever it might be, and it's continually being updated even yet. But again, I had gone through it when I retired. I worked part-time for the village of Springboro, and I had to fill out this form when it came back and said that I had not completed the Opata course, so I couldn't work up there. And the city manager and the chief of police about went nuts, because they knew me and helped me. I wrote a letter to Opata and the highway patrol, and the patrol sent a letter back to me and to Opata that the training that I had was consistent with what was required at that time, so I was qualified. So then Opata backed off and said, put the Neil Opstop blessing on it, said, okay. So one of those things, what happened here, but patrol, the openness of doing things the right way when they happen ahead of time. So anyhow, we had a gal who was working for me at that time. I was a deputy, and she came in one day and she's crying tears this big as your glass there, your jug there. I mean, just all cranked up. So, what in the hell's going on? She says, I'm not qualified to be a deputy. I said, what are you talking about? She says, well, I got this information. I found out about this information. I got married, and my husband was into the Army, and I moved with him to Montana or someplace out deep Midwest. And there was a break in service. You had to come back and get requalified. And she said, I never did it. I don't know what to do. I said, well, let's see what we got to do, and work with her. And found out she needs some updated training. So don't worry about it. You can take a break and get the training, and it'll get you back on the job. Get yourself caught up. You're okay. We'll get you caught up, and you get the okay from Opata. It's going to be okay. So that was happy for her, and for me also. But at the same time, yes, I want everybody we have as a sworn deputy to fill out this form for Opata and make sure that everybody is qualified as in their books in Opata at London. And the end result of that, I think we had, as I recall, we had one person who didn't meet the standard, didn't have paperwork or anything. And somehow or another, his excuse was, well, the sheriff said I had the qualification. He hired me. And I says, you're not. And if I continue to keep you employed as a deputy, working the road, doing whatever, or being deputy, carrying deputy's badge, yeah, I've got a vicarious liability issue somebody will have with me, and it ain't gonna happen. So what I'm willing to do is let you work in the jail as a CO. You have to take a pay cut, because you're not a deputy. And he wouldn't do it. He said, you know, you forced me into doing something I don't wanna do. He said, I'm not gonna be a jailer. I said, okay, well, they had a union, so the union took me to the arbitration, and the arbitrator ruled in his favor.
Interesting.
But which was illegal anyhow, but it was like, I have to pay, not I, but, sheriff's office, out of our budget, we gotta pay for his unpaid training. And I was a very unhappy camper. But, again, it's how it is. The arbitrator, really has a lot of struggle, and they rule either way, they got a lot of struggle. So, just bit the bullet, and I, had to pay him his back pay, had to pay for the training, but I wouldn't let him through the doors until he got that certificate of training, which he wasn't very, he wasn't happy about that, but he ended up coming back, and he retired finally. Okay.
So what were some of your daily tasks and duties? Like, what was like a regular work week for you?
The work week was, it's a 7-day-a-week job. And I tried to, the chief and I, was with our supervisors, the management, we added a couple captains, we added a couple lieutenants, so they had some direct supervision. And we assigned the people to squads, and we rotated the squads so that they couldn't get, not that they couldn't, but we didn't want cliques established. Didn't want, it's easily to do when you get, and it's just the two of you, right? In your archives?
So we have a staff of 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
We're
a good
also
figure.
with the microphone department.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm in the recorder's office.
Oh, for the recorder? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But anyhow, we didn't want to get cliques that had already been established, because some of these, there was 4 squads, and 4 of them, out of the 4 squads, some of the guys had been working with that same lieutenant for 10 years or longer. So they got cliques established. New guy comes in, kind of on the outside until he kind of moves into their, how they look at things. I said, no, this is not good. Like, we had one squad where they had a guy in there, all he wanted to do was work traffic. All he wanted to do was work traffic.
Okay.
He wanted to be a state trooper, is what he wanted to be, and didn't make it. But, that kind of an operation, I said, no, I can't do that, Our job is to fight crime and evil and all the other stuff. And traffic is a low ball item, because we got patrol posts down the street here, it's got 20 troops. That's what their job is. Handle crashes, work traffic and stuff like that. And crimes, that occur on state property. The state property, they can handle those cases. And for example, in my time as a supervisor, probably the last case I really worked on, we had a homicide LCI. And I was out there on the first call, but it's not, I'm a supervisor, I don't do those things, handle those cases, help out, what do you need? But, it's gonna be your case, and go at it. But, again, any help you need, we'll do it. But, that's how we get in felony cases, major felony cases. It was LCI, and that didn't happen that often. I just happened to be working when this one prisoner stabbed another one, and did a good job of it, unfortunately for for the guy that got killed. But again, you know, all this guy wanted to do was work traffic. He didn't want to have them crashes. All he wanted to do was work traffic. And, you know, he was a little bit weird, or to me was weird. I mean, he would, you know, for example, early on, somebody had a state police cap in his back window. You know, the big window in the back. And he stopped this guy, and I think it was a West Virginia State Police hat. And he stopped him and says, you know, you want to charge him for impersonating an officer? It's like, give me a break. You know, hats like that are on the market, open the market. You know, you can see them by, you know, every day you see him. Well, he's impersonating. It's like, no, he's not. And another time he had somebody, you know, in a handicap spot that overrode, you know, a yellow line, and he wanted to screw with him. You can't do that. You know, that's not, you know, that's not our job.
So what were some of the highest profile cases that you guys worked on while you were sheriff? Does any of them stand out to you?
They all do. Probably the first one was the Barton Case. And Barton Case was Jim Barton was a lieutenant at Springboro Police Department. And I had worked for him, with him, and when he first started as a police officer at Springboro. And I say when I retired from patrol, chief up there, Carl Hirschback, hired me as a part-timer. You know, whenever I wanted to work, keep my ticket going. And so I worked with Jim, and knew his wife, went out for different events, not with them, but that they were at. And my wife Bonnie and his wife, became kind of, you know, friends in a way, you know, like casual friends. And we had seen them a month or so prior to this incident up at the mall. And I'm having a blank here, I can't remember her name this moment. But anyhow, Jim's wife said something up on, you know, we need to get together for dinner, you know, one of these nights. And you know, just around BS. Hey, that sounds great. Well, shortly after that, she turned up dead in her bed. And there's a long story to it, but anyhow, Jim became a person of interest. And the person of interest was that most generally, you know, immediate family are persons of interest till they can get either cleared, wiped off the plate, you know, we're not interested in you. But anyhow, we could never clear him, you know, get him done. And a lot of stories going on. But anyhow, the biggest story was that the chief was retiring, and Jim, you know, Hirschback, Carl, had left, and they had hired a police captain, you know, assistant chief out of Cincinnati for Springboro Police Department, and he was retiring from Springboro, and so that spot was open, but you had to be a resident of the city of Springboro. And Jim and his wife had a small farm outside of Springboro in Franklin Township, and she was into horses, showing horses and that kind of stuff, and she would move in Springboro. So there's the motive. And anyhow, supposedly somebody came to her door, and she was a nurse. She was an RN in Miami Valley, and well-known, an instructor, nurses instructor, and stuff like that, and had been there a long time. And Vicky got her name finally, and case went cold. Case went cold. We had suspects. One primary suspect, he turned up dead. He got into one of the ponds at steel plant. Golly.
Armco?
Armco, yes, at Armco. He run through the fence and they had a pond where after he washed the steel, had the chemicals on it, and it was kind of like a pit for that garbage as such. And he got into that somehow or another in his car and he drowned. So we were locked on that one. So anyhow, so the case went cold. And they went through, Springboro went through a couple chiefs. And Jeff Kratar, who is the chief now, he came in from Michigan. And he and I and Ron Farrell had a lunch meeting at the Lamb. And Jeff's pitch was, we need to get this case solved. What's it gonna take? I said, man, we're at dead end. We don't, our primary subject, basically what I've told you, we don't have, we got a lot of suspects, but we don't have anybody that we really think we need to work on. And it turned out that we did have one, and he was related to the guy who drowned in the pond. And he had served time and talked to somebody when he should have kept his mouth shut. And we got feedback. So anyhow, but Jeff was into the, I think it was from Battle Creek, Michigan, is where he was a police officer. He was a high-ranking supervisor, and maybe the assistant chief. But anyhow, he came down here to Springboro, and he said, we established this cold case squad, and I've talked to the prosecutor up there about Vicky and Jim, and need some help. What do you think? Sounds good to me. If he wants to come down and talk to us, and we'll set up, just open up some training for anybody that wants to come in. If he's willing to come down, he says, well, he's willing to come down. And I think he had another fella who was on their cold case squad as a worker, as a police officer, and instruct this training. So we set it up. I think, man, we had a room about this big, and there was a lot of people hearing about, including Jim Barton. And we couldn't exclude him. But anyhow, we did this, and Spring gave us a guy. We got one guy from Moraine and another one from Oakwood, I believe. We got a police officer from Mason. So we had 4 or 5 guys. Oh, and I had 2 people. So we had a lot of folks. And the one person I put in charge of it, because I say, well, we'll have about 4 different agencies involved, 2 out of county and the rest of them were locals. And I had hired a police officer out of Cincinnati, a sergeant who had been a homicide investigator almost his whole career. And it was like, yes, he's been there and done this stuff. That was his job. He's a homicide investigator, and this, work on a homicide. So we got this thing going, and it took about a year. And what it boiled down to for Jim, that he did not truly participate, but he wanted her out of there. And he had talked to a friend of his, who was the guy who we think died in the pond. And his brother, we got his brother, and I'm kind of gun ducking now on some of this stuff, but anyhow, we were able, I think they went down in, the southern states. I think somebody went to Arkansas or Oklahoma, one of the guys, or 2 of the guys, to interview somebody, and came back. And the only thing we could really get, our primary suspect was dead, only all we had was his brother, who did not participate in what happened to Vicky. And Jim, that he possibly had contact with the brother and said, yeah, she won't do it. Can you do this to scare her? To, get her off the farm and move into town. And we ended up prosecuting Jim and got a conviction. And for that part of it, that he didn't kill her, he was just tried to set up something that went bad. So he did his time, and he's out of prison now. But that was probably, one of many. And when I say many, Warren County does not have that many homicides. The good thing about it is that, one of my spiels was, and giving it to you, is that Warren County is isolated. The bad folks in Dayton, Montgomery County, and the bad folks in Hamilton County, Cincinnati, don't know we exist. Because our homicide rates is nothing. I shouldn't say nothing, because one is a lot. But again, it's still, I think it's still the same thing. Very few homicides. And usually it's a family involved. But outside homicides just don't happen.
Were there any exceptionally entertaining cases that you worked on?
I cannot really recall anything really stupid. Yeah, but they do happen.
Yeah.
But I really cannot. None of them have really lasted on me. They exist, and they were funny at the time.
Right.
God, to be me. This has happened amongst the troops. They come in and giggle, hey, he did this or she did that, and get on with life. And hey, boy, you won't believe this one, but this happened, with us tonight. But it was, I looked at the job, and I still do. It was a fun job. Yeah. I like being a trooper. I had fun. And and when I worked, I taught school. Most of the time, I had fun. Most of the time, working with, I had the juniors, and they were about half cracked up anyhow. And most of them couldn't, I had, I'm going back now on other stuff, but I had one of the student counselor, had a kid came in there, and he had about a third grade level of math, and writing skills was about second grade, and he wanted to be a police officer. I said, he ain't gonna make it. He's not gonna make it. I've been there, I taught at the academy, and he's not gonna make it, or they're not gonna make it. And she looked me right in the eye and said, Mr. Harris, you must understand, every child's got the right to fail.
Okay, yeah.
It's like, this is crazy, they're not gonna make it. And I kind of told them they're not gonna make it. But it's not fair to the child. You're not doing them a favor. Get them into a program that they'll succeed at. That we know, you should know, and even myself know that's a pretty good job being a mechanic, or, man, Scarlet had a campus that could hold us. They had, at one time, I think they had 2,000 students. Well, you name the program, they had it. Nurses training or whatever that's called, not nurses training, but whatever. But almost you name the program, they had it. And even now, trying to market, like Career Center up here, trying to market some of those things that they have and the money they can make, they can't get kids in them. They can make, our son runs a U.S. food warehouse down in Cincinnati, and Sharonville, He does run the operation, he runs the day shift operation. And he can hire people at the end of a year, they're making $50,000 plus benefits, straight time. They can make 50 grand plus the benefits. And he says, they don't wanna work. They don't wanna work. They come in there and they'll work a couple of days and then they don't show up.
Oh, no.
They don't even come to get their check. But it's, it's crazy, but again, all my jobs, I had fun. That was probably the only one I didn't have a lot of fun. And it was, we had a bunch of good kids, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I just hate to see somebody coming in and they're not gonna make it. Especially with the change, you go, the Opata, that you have to have that ticket. Whew. But every child's got the right to fail.
True.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that is all right. So, once you then retired from the sheriff's department, you then took a couple years off.
Sheriff's office.
Sheriff's office, sorry.
Yeah.
And once you left the sheriff's office and then took a couple years off and then went to the position of becoming a commissioner, was it difficult and kind of a hard transition finally getting out of a law enforcement-based occupation?
I could separate it, but it was, I knew everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I got around. When I say I got around, I worked, when I say I worked people, that's on a plus side. But I would try to walk through this building here, or the old building, once a week, maybe just walk through and say, hey, how you doing? Stop and BS somebody. And, I had other trappers to run also, but,
So
most people knew me.
So what made you want to run for commissioner?
It was an opportunity, and Mike Kilburn wasn't running. So it was, it was a big opportunity. And, it was, a big opportunity. I got into it, and I was gonna run anyhow against Mike. But Mike, decided that he was gonna run for the state legislature, so that really made it nice. Well, then another party jumped in and, made me have to work a little bit harder. But it was fun. And, what was good, the county, even yet, is one of the few counties in the state that financially is totally secure. You look at this building, when we opened the county jail, not this one, but the one that's up here now. And they call it the old jail, but it's not. But when it got opened, and the juvenile center got opened about the same time, both of those places were paid for. Our building was $7 million, and theirs was about the same. So it was paid for. Turned the key in, and they gave the key, to the commissioners. Here's the key to the front door, or the judge. And same way with the jail. When we opened that jail, it was paid for.
So when you were a commissioner and you were making decisions about projects within the county, did that make it more difficult?
No.
Having a balanced budget?
Made it easy.
Yeah.
Made it easy. Because, again, here we are, trying to, in the philosophy prior to me coming in there was that if we can't pay for it, we're not gonna do it. Which is good. To market, the position, I'm talking about, Pat South and Mike, and I forget who the third one was right this moment, but, Larry Christenberry. It really made sense. I mean, like you go to the grocery store, it's nice to walk out of there and everything's paid for.
Do you know how far back the balanced budget went, or has it always been a situation?
Oh,
in
no.
Warren County?
At one time, and I'm gun decking it out, but I think it was in the 60s, maybe early 70s. They couldn't make payroll.
Oh, no.
They could not make payroll. And if it wasn't for Judge Herdman, who owned the Warren County Bank, he floated them a loan to pay the employees. And he was a county court judge, so he was an office holder. But again, we can't do that. And so then as a result of that, and and I've said this more than once, and there's more truth than there is extending things, is that I'd say the auditor and the treasurer, the 3 county commissioners got together and said, this cannot happen again. And we're going to improve on that liability issue of not having any money, that we can pay our bills. If we can't pay the bills, we're not gonna do the project. And that's why we're in the position we are now. It's kind of like the new jail. They added a 1/4% sales tax on, and in 2 more years, that thing comes off and the building is paid for.
Right.
And they're already ahead of the game on the payoff. So again, it's, facing reality and making things happen. And, just different things that have accomplished. Again, I'm going to backtrack on you here a little bit too. We talked about the Barton case, but, we established a cold case file, not on that one, but on other ones, and we're able to be successful. The drug task force is probably one of the biggest things. When they came here, a lot of drugs, still a lot of drugs, but convincing the police departments, we got to work together. We got a common problem. We all got drugs. How do we solve it? So we got the drug task force established, and that sucker had been renowned for what they've done. I mean, done a lot of good stuff. And then, I said we had the cold case file. We started a tactical response team. I mean, there was about 2 or 3 of them in the county, and nobody had enough money for anything. I mean, they just captured people and thought they wanted to be in it. Now, training. We got a nice drug task force. We got a nice emergency response team with involvement and specialized training in the equipment. I don't know how many big trucks they've got now. They got 2 at least. But again, working together. And again, firm believer in if you're working together, you make things happen better, because you got to understand it. Nobody can really afford doing it themselves. They're not big enough. We had one agency didn't want to participate, and almost every time they got involved in something, they got screwed up. But they did not want to play with the big boys, and we weren't big boys. It was just like, it's just a group of people that has the training. We're getting training for them, and we've got the equipment. And if you get troubles down where you're at, and you need to call us, don't be bashful. We'll come. We're not going to isolate you. Say no, it's because you've got one. You need some help, we're going to do it. And just different events. We had worked with the prosecutor's office on a lot of different programs to make things happen for the good of the county. And this is a great county. I mean, you name it, we can make it happen. Money talks, and the other stuff is like when you can just dream. And it doesn't matter what dreams. We got a lot of things accomplished, and I was part of it. I mean, fortunate enough to be there. But again, we had people who wanted to play, and there was money here. Again, a good example, like with the drug task force, we went and contacted all the entities, the township trustees, the village councils, city councils, and asked them for, and I'm thinking we asked for $1 apiece for their citizens to put in the pot so we could do things. And everybody participated. I think all of them did participate. They might not be able to afford what we were asking, but they participated, maybe even added personnel, give us some people well, had monetary value to it. But, when we came here as the commissioners, it was the same thing, and they coughed it up. They coughed it up. The Child Abuse Center, we were actively involved in that, probably primarily with the prosecutor, which was Rachel Hustle at that time. Her and us, the sheriff's office, worked hard to work with Atrium, get the advocacy center set up and running. And, they got a director, and they threw some nice shindigs to raise money, and they raised a lot of money. But again, that was, another thing that we started at the SO. We had Children's Services investigator, and we hired one person to start with, and he lasted probably a year or so and went on to another town, another county, I think. But again, then we added two, and working with children, so there was, a child been molested or whatever it might be, they didn't have to talk to a lot of people. They had to talk to specialists. I mean, that was what their job was. And when I left, I'm thinking the conviction rate was just under 100%. I mean, because of how they did their job and the information they were able to obtain, and the child didn't have to testify. And they had, convinced that bad person, you better take the deal, because if you don't, you will go to trial. You're gonna be wishing you took the deal. And most of them, I say we were high 90s. But again, those kinds of things, it's like, touch heart. How important it is. But again, Rachel and us got it started, and then got people to buy into it. And there was, some of the bigger departments, none of the departments were big. Other than Mason was, they had 30 maybe people. Frank was about in the 20s. LPD was in the 20 pluses. They couldn't really afford to give people, but they could share people. So again, those kinds of things to make it happen, it's good for the organizations that become participating, because we're all in the same boat. You got to convince the people, the citizens, that these programs are good. They're going to work, and you got knowledge of them. You read about them. Unfortunately, every day someplace, a child's getting abused. We got people handle those cases.
Well, so touching on some of these programs that you helped establish, is there one that you're most proud of after your time served? Or is it just all as a collection that kind of contributed?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Until I get lumped up. Oh, yeah. Because they were so important.
Right.
And again, it's trying to sell. Rachel and I, we worked a lot, but again, to sell the programs to people. And it's just like emergency response team. We had one here, and when I came here, there was no training documented, and they had equipment, and I gave everything away. Called the high sheriff, called Simon Lease, who was a sheriff in Hamilton County, and said, hey, we got stuff up here that we can't use. We don't have any training.
Right.
And I'm not gonna have it. So I'll send somebody up, and they were up here in a couple of hours with a truck and took everything we had. But again, what was bad about it, there was a lag, and when I got that appointment, it was like a week's lag, and people got crazy in the office and ordered that stuff. I had no idea, and then, once it got here, it was like, what the hell, when did the sheriff order this stuff? And it was like, nobody wanted to talk about it, so I knew. But again, I talked to Ron Farrell and Chief Kenny Burns about setting up, a tactical response team, because the three of us had something, but we didn't have any training. There was nothing documented. I mean, it showed them when they was out training themselves, which was crazy. I mean, it didn't mean nothing. I said, I'm gonna discontinue it, and we'll start all over again. And I'd already gotten to Kenny and Ron and said, why don't we work together and, we can pool our money and have one decent one that we can send out, and as we grow bigger, we can add to it, get more people involved, and it worked out. I mean, it was easy, and most of it was easy sell. It was just sharing ideas and, working out marketing.
I have kind of a selfish question. So at one point, the microfilm department was in the sheriff's office building. Do you recall that? We're trying to collect a
Supposedly-
memo.
Oh, yeah, you came in the back and did our,
Sure.
a lot of stuff that we had that needed to be, we had more, the stuff that, we became volume, rooms full of paperwork. We need to condense that stuff, we need that space. And, I forgot about that, yeah.
We always talk about it with prior employees, but we were just curious.
Yeah, but they were just, we didn't know even that they were there, other than, hey, they're back, the record, or the microfilm, and people are here. So, what do you need done? Let's take them to the room. Everything you can copy in there, anything and everything is open. We need it all out of here. It was great.
So was that a special project that they were over there working on?
Yeah, they were looking on reports.
Okay.
That's all it was.
Yeah.
But when I say that's all it was,
That was enough.
There was a lot.
oh, yeah. Were you guys involved in that?
Our department was,
Yeah.
but not us, and
Yeah.
that was prior to
Yeah.
this building being here.
Oh,
and
yeah,
us-
yeah,
Cause we
yeah.
have a whole setup in the basement now where we do it all, but I imagine back then it was on location
Yeah.
situation,
Our
so.
prior coworkers had told us about it because the original employees from the record centers, or the microfilm department, still worked there until 2016. There was Pat Grove, and she was one of the women who was back there doing that, and she just retired in the summer of 16.
Oh, yeah. I say it was just, I call it marketing. It's not, we're trying to sell a product. I mean, it's like your people then, hey, we got some stuff. Can we help you? Oh, give us a break. You sure can. I mean, it was just like, hey,
Yeah.
didn't know you existed. I knew it was down there, but didn't know what they were doing.
Right.
And yeah.
That's most
Yeah.
of the other county departments.
Oh, yeah, but that's good. I mean, it's marketing. You're selling your product. Hey, we can do this.
Which departments did you like to interact with the most? Did you have favorites?
No,
No?
None.
no, really. I mean, I enjoyed my job. And part of my job was BSing. But again, it was, I didn't milk anybody. It was just, I like people. I like getting around. Like I said, I tried to, I was peed at myself when I let the clock get ahead of me. As I figured, I'll be here, I plan on being here at 4:15. Just because, I see the gals down front and, walk around and come out and catch you guys about 10 till. And it's like, man, the next thing I knew, I was looking at the clock and said it was 9:42.
You still have lots of time today to go say hi to people.
I feel like that's a perk of working for Warren County, is that
Yes.
you get to interact with all the other employees.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I feel like our department, we work with a lot of the other departments, so we establish really good working relationships, so.
Yeah, I
I've
got-
never had a job prior to this that was like that.
Okay, I'm bragging on another contact. It wasn't really a contact, but the county garage was out back here, where there's a gun range. And they, at that time when I came here, they had 2 employees taking care of the fleet, our fleet, plus any other stuff that the county had. And Andy Russell was the head mechanic. I'm the head mechanic. Okay, but anyhow, Andy's gonna retire at the end of the year. And I got called, a week or two ago and said, hey, we're gonna have a little event for Andy. We'd like to have you come. I said, hey, great. So, another special thing, apparently this is an additional party for him because the county's gonna recognize him sometime, I think in early January.
Right.
And, it was like, wow. Well, Bonnie and I, have kind of ragged on Andy for years. And I said, can I bring Bonnie? She said, heck yeah. More the merrier. But again, just the idea of Andy. But when I came here, there was just the two of them. And, they would be working outside in the rain, working on cars, doing stuff in the snow. And, it was kind of funny in a way, but when they had the big snowstorm in the 70s, the county went out and bought for the sheriff 2 snowmobiles.
Yeah.
That's the only time they ever used them.
Well, so it's funny you speak of Andy,
Gee.
because we have a special guest today.
Hey, what's that, buddy? How are you?
Wonderful.
Good.
So
What are you
we are
doing?
still
Get
on
ready,
camera.
quit.
No, I came over to say, I really enjoyed working with you. We had a great
How'd you
agency
know?
department and
How'd you know I was here?
I know a lot.
He knows everything.
I know a lot.
No kidding.
So, I wanted to come over and say, hey, and, I know you did your interview. and
We're still doing the interview, so this
Yeah.
is on video still.
Yes.
Thanks for everything, and, actually, when you're done with the interview, if you would like, I'd like to do a couple pictures with the sheriff.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank
absolutely.
you very much.
Well, and we were going to offer if you have any stories you would like to share together
Well, we work good
also.
together.
Because he was just telling the snowmobile story, which we had asked, so we did an oral history with Andy, was it Friday?
Oh, yeah.
Or
Last Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Did he
Yeah.
tell you about the snowmobile?
We
Yeah.
did.
Well, we have pictures of them that we share all the
Yeah,
time, so.
that Andy had given us in the past.
Went by fast, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The first time I ever met him, you won the election, you were at work, I guess it was on a Tuesday, you won the election, you were at work Wednesday. I'm in the parking lot doing what I do, and you came out and introduced yourself. I said, welcome to Warren County, I'm at your service. So 16 years went by.
That's quick.
Give you a chair if you wanna sit down.
Does he actually want to sit with us?
Yeah. So we're just kind of wrapping up,
Yeah.
with
Hearing all
Tom,
the good
so.
stories.
We got into a lot of stuff.
Oh, probably another good story on Andy. You've heard about snowmobiles. When I came here and we had a fleet of pretty good stuff. He was saying excellent stuff, but it was pretty good stuff. But he had problems with transmissions, and he farmed transmissions out to a guy from Waynesville who did a lot of work, and it was pretty expensive. So he pardon me, bitching at me about his transmissions. I said, why don't you start building them yourself, repair them yourself. He said, I can't do that. I ain't got time. That's BS. Do it. Talked to him. It took me about 6 months to finally get him convinced that we had a piece of junk and the transmission was out. I said, take it out, rebuild it, see what happens. Well, he rebuilt it, and about a month later he comes in, he says, damn thing's on the fritz again. Says, so what? Pull it apart, see what went wrong, and go on from there. Well, guess what? It didn't take him long, and he was rebuilding the transmissions. So he shut the poor guy out of his transmission business.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah. But again, this stuff like that, convinces, hey, you can do it. And now how many people we got out there?
We got 5 of us. There's 5 mechanics out there now. So it
Again,
expanded
And look at the
rapidly.
building he's got, not laying in the mud and dirt outside garage
You
doors.
guys work
in the
me
rain.
outside a lot.
Huh?
You work me outside a lot.
No, we had some good times out there in that garage. Had some good teams, had some good people, and they did a lot of work in short space. And now he's got a factory out there. He really does.
It grew,
Oh,
expanded,
yeah,
and it developed to what we have today. And
All the cars, he used to farm them out for the decals and stuff. They do
Yeah.
it all.
Yeah.
Install the radios, everything. I mean, just how much money, that saves the county.
Yeah.
How much money?
Well, they do a good job of it too. So very, very clean lines on those decals.
Oh, yeah. But again, it's, of course, the uniform car marking is a standard in Ohio.
Mhm.
Everybody's patrol car looks alike, or sheriff's cars look alike
Mhm.
because of. But yeah, a town's full of people like him.
I was at the right place at the right time, I reckon.
Yeah, but again, how many years you got?
40. That's why I came over, cause my last day's December 31st, so if you need anything, you need to get in the garage now, cause I'll be
The
done
sheriff's
after December
special.
31st. I got 4 guys that'll do it right now.
Oh, yeah. What, nothing waiting outside?
I got a few out there that need some stuff done. They'll be done here shortly. We're not loafing, we're still getting stuff out of the garage.
Absolutely.
Ah,
Oh.
No, we've had some good experience with Andy. Phew. We got some,
It was fun.
oh, yeah. Remember the first truck we got that repossessed?
From Arizona.
That red Ford?
Yeah, I got pictures of it.
Yeah. Yeah, we needed a pickup and we got one from a drug case. And it was a pretty nice truck looking, but it was bright red, we need to paint it. No, we don't. So we put the decals on that sucker, it'll work. Then we got a BMW convertible.
Did
It was
you
a
do
piece
that
of,
one?
it was a piece of junk. It was hard riding and hard getting in and out of.
A lot of the vehicles that they seized, they let the drug task force use. And they used them and we rotated them in and out till we thought that they were made, and then we removed them.
Yeah. We ended up with a fleet of recovered cars, drug task force did, trucks, pickup trucks that came back from
They were shipping
Australia.
them. Yeah, they were trying to ship them out of the country.
Yeah.
And you took possession of them. I think it was 20.
Yeah, they're
20 or
going-
25 of them.
They're going to Australia.
Oh my gosh.
And I ended up taking one of them just to drive, as a company car. But we didn't mark it, but it was a nice, what was it, GMC or?
Yeah, they were GMCs. They were 3/4 ton.
Yeah.
They were expensive trucks.
Boy, they were nice. But they had a garage full of them. I mean, they had a garage full of them, amongst other stuff. I mean, that's another good thing, that I talked about the drug task force. I mean, the stuff that they've done, wow. Selling the programs. Selling the programs.
It was good. It was
Yeah.
good.
Oh.
Made a lot of progress. You made a lot of people happy, taking care of what you had to do. And my job was to service this department like we do all the other departments. So, my job was to make sure you were safe.
Offices.
Yeah, the offices, that's not, the sheriff's office, not the department.
I learned that.
He taught me that a long time ago.
I am guilty of calling it the department
Yeah,
up
I've
until
done
this
that.
point, so.
Is any other entity of the county an office and not a department, or is that just the sheriff's office that's like that?
Sheriff's office, prosecutor's office.
It's all
Okay.
elected, they're all elected, so those are offices.
Okay, did not know
That's
that.
good to
That
know.
that is
Yeah, the
excellent
commissioners
knowledge.
only provide us with money. They don't supervise the elected officials. They try, they try,
So
they
with-
try.
I know you said that was a 7-day-a-week job. Were there hourly requirements on the
No.
sheriff? So it was just,
No, I would come in probably, around 7:30, and if I got out of here at 6 o'clock or 7, Blunt understood. No, it's, I didn't, I could've went home and some of the sheriffs in the past, I knew, at 4:01, get out of the way, cause they're coming out there. But this is how it was, but, I came in with a different philosophy. It was like, I think we talked about it, but it's openness and say, hey. And people would be coming by, cause for a long time, we didn't have 24 office operations. It was just strictly 8 to 5. And, people would get off of work and wanna find out some information and when is they're closed. And we got enough staff that we could stay open till midnight and be closed down from midnight till 8 o'clock. But it was, yeah. See, you know, in the building, yeah, the building where the county court is now, there's a hallway, goes down through the center of that building, and there was an apartment back in there. And they had, it was basically for, traveling, deputies or police officers coming to pick up prisoners and needing a place to stay. So they had an apartment back here. And then they ended up, a few years after they opened the building, they hired a matron, and she stayed in the apartment. And it was an efficiency apartment. It was kind of nice. It's kind of nice. But it, you know.
I did not realize there was an apartment in there at
Yeah.
all.
Well, and we kicked a couple walls out, made it into an office space, you know, a report room for the officers. You know, we needed space. Like I say, we were growing and needed space. They could do their stuff. You know, when I came there, I think there was one computer. And, yeah, before, what was nice about it in a way, we only had one, and the sheriff is entitled to 10% of his budget to go into a fund called the Sheriff's Fund. And it can only be used for stuff, not personnel, but for equipment, strictly for the sheriff's office. So, I think when we were getting about 45, 50,000 bucks a year. But that first year I think we had maybe 20,000 bucks. And I bought half a dozen computers. And then the gals all went nuts. But you know, it was just, they needed them.
Right.
They needed them. And the Dicks were the same way. They didn't have anything. I mean, everything was all paperwork. You know, now it's done. And you can edit it and do whatever you got to nicely. But it's how things were.
We used to do everything by paper in the garage till the 90s when the computers came to the garage. And if you go in there and look at our reports today, since we've had the computers, we've had 45,000 repairs. So what we did before that, we probably have had 60,000 vehicles through there over the 40 years that I worked there. So there's been a lot of traffic. You guys made a lot of work for me.
Well, I think too, convince you to do some computer work.
Well, at first I didn't want to.
Yeah, you didn't want to, man.
Well,
You
it's
know, it was
different.
like fighting
Now I
with a
love it.
dog.
Well, it's hard to change. Nobody wants to change, you know? When
You do.
change comes, you resist it. But you know what? After it changed, you were better off for it.
Yeah.
So technology's good. I told you the girls that the other day. Technology's good, but it's the change, and it'll change for you too, in your career here too, so.
You know, oh yeah. Well, it's like this, I was telling them coming up here, this room used to be a dump room. This whole wing in the area, it was just full of voter stuff and other, like that kind of, which is good stuff, but there was a lot of junk in here that just got put in the back
All this
room.
was purchased for this space.
Absolutely wonderful.
There's
Tell them
some
how
good
nice it
here.
is to be able to, money wise, that there's plenty of money, everything's paid for.
So to wrap up, I guess, is there anything that you miss the most about working for the county?
People,
Do you get up here very often to see people?
not enough.
Yeah.
But I don't wanna be a pain in the butt, sorry.
That is okay.
You know, I try to stop in, you know, once a month, just walk around. Say hello. You know, like get in that new jail, see what it's like, now that it's all together. I'll get in there.
I hear it's nice.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I said I hear it's nice. they let some of the county employees go tour it
Oh, yeah?
before it opened.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We got in there just a couple months before they opened it up. Nothing was really finished, but, just that growth, the jail that we added on to only had, I think, 75 beds. And when we made that addition, it was $7 million. And we went to, I think, 175, so we added, about 100 beds. And, just a change in that of operations, we hired, there used to be a new employee as a deputy, had to start out in a jail. And they had to work their way out of the jail to get on the road. And most of the time it was just by spot opens up and you've been in the jail as a jailer for most amount of time you're on the road. And they were in a job they didn't want to do, unfortunately. They wanted to be a police officer, they wanted to be a deputy, and they were stuck in a jail. So when we built the addition on, talked to the union and said, how about I would like to hire correctional officers strictly to be a correctional officer, and we need females. We need females, and we need almost a third of the proposed staff to be females. And it was like, what are you gonna pay them? We're gonna pay them less than what a deputy is because it's a different job, and the expectations are different. I mean, they're gonna be working 8 hours, and when they're done with their 8 hours, they're done. And but it's gonna be a good, reasonable pay, but it's not gonna be what a deputy's making. And so they bought into it. When I talked to commissioners, told them basically the same story. We want to hire people to be correctional officers only, and convince and talk to the union, and they're on board with it. They're okay. So I say, but again, it's being able to market what you want to get done, and so I say trying to find. There was 2 female deputies, I think. Lisa and somebody else. But anyhow, we only had 2. And trying to find females who want to be deputies, couldn't find them. But find them for corrections, we bought it. We had a gal came in, and she was a graduate from Ohio State. And she came in and heard about what we were going to do, and said, I'm interested. She did the talk, and we talked to her, and she says, I'm not really sure I really want to do this because of. So how is it about a tour of the new jail? So kind of like, said, yeah, can I? Said, sure. Called jail, said, got this gal up here, would like to have a tour of the jail. She's interested in becoming a correctional officer. Took her back there. She came back up in an hour or so and said, can I have an application? And she was back there for several years, Desiree.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
She was back there several years and made sergeant, and she had an opportunity to go to juvenile center as the director of the juvenile detention center itself. And she got that job. Then she ended up marrying a judge. And she stayed there for a while, and then she became pregnant and decided to be a mom. But boy, she was a great gal. But again, just how nice, and I say we got her 1/3 females back there. But again, and we had elderly women. I say women that are in their 50s that hired in. And like the inmates back there, they look at females like their sister or their mother. But with the guys, but just how the place was operated, you know, probably an exciting story, I forgot about building a new jail, but the exciting thing, the three commissioners, you know, all bought into it, and there was a little bit of hesitation on what we had done, or what we were doing on the planning, and in the early planning, one of the architect came, you know, was here once a week with new drawings and how their conceptual ideas were. And we were meeting in a meeting at the sheriff's office, and the architect was an Irishman, red-haired, and a little kind of smaller guy. And one of the commissioners got it, jumped right astraddle him. I mean, just chewing on him. We're not going to do that. He said, I don't care what it is. And this guy's, he's a jail building, you know, knows what he's doing. And he's talking to somebody, or somebody talking is trying to tell him how to run his business. And he got so mad, the Irishman got so mad, he got up and walked out. He said, I don't need this bullshit. He said, I don't need it. Business doesn't need it. I'm out of here. And walked out. And we'd already, you know, had used him for a couple of months, so, you know, it's a pretty good tab sitting on that. So that's one part of it. So anyhow, we're out looking at different jails around the country, trying to pick up good ideas of, you know, what the latest technology is and stuff like that. And one of the commissioners, we were going to meet in, trying to think where the Mall of America is. Is that,
Is it
Minnesota?
or-
yeah, Minneapolis,
Minnesota.
up in there. And he was going to be in Detroit, and he was going to fly into whatever. And I would meet him, and we'd do our thing, stay at that hotel, and then do our, we were gone for a week. So anyhow, I fly in, go to the hotel, and get checked in. I asked, you know, is so-and-so checked in yet? He says, oh yeah, he's been here a couple hours. I said, oh, okay. He says, what's his room number? And he told me. And so I go to my room and stack my stuff away and go up to his room, and I knock on the door. The door comes open, and there's smoke about this high. He had quit smoking. And the plane from Detroit to Minneapolis, or wherever it was, got hit by lightning twice.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Remember that? Remember
About
that?
killed him, didn't it? I know who you're talking about.
I mean, I couldn't help but giggle. I fell on the floor. Larry, what in the hell is going on here? And he said, you ain't gonna believe this. I gave part of the name up, didn't I?
I heard you.
He said, you ain't gonna believe this. I said, yeah, I do. I see it when the door opens and all that smoke comes rolling out on me, so when a fire alarm can go off.
Those are good times.
Those
Those are good times.
And we went out, and first day, we went to this one jail, or no, we had a meeting at the hotel. I think there was probably 25, 30 jails being built, so we got a pretty good sized crowd, and we're presenting, you know, our ideas, or what our plans are, and, you know, introduction of every, you know, introduce yourself, who you are, where you're coming from, da-da-da-da-da. And this particular commissioner stands up and he says, I think this plan is basically BS. And he was kind of blunt. I mean, he was really blunt. He said, I'm not really behind it. I'm coming with Tom just because. Okay. So then the other ones, everybody else was, you know, on the plus side, you know, hey, we need this, da-da, da-da, da-da. We're here to find out what technology is going to be available to us. And at the closing, you know, any updates, you know, from everybody. And he stood up and he says, tell you what, Tom's not gonna have any more problems with me. I totally understand. So he did a 180 on his, attitude about what ought to be in a new jail and what shouldn't be there. And when we opened that joint, we had a party. We sold tickets to come to this event, and it was in December, I think, as I recall. And spend the night in jail. We're gonna feed you a dinner snack. You'll have breakfast with us. You'll have a bunk by yourself. It's gonna cost you $25. And the money that we're getting, we're gonna give to Habitat for Humanity. I think we raised $3,000.
Wow, that's great.
And the place had, I think we got about 6 inches of snow that night. And a lot of people did show up. But there was only one person that didn't spend the night with us. They started out, didn't want any part of it. I mean, they had, we had a party, we had music, we had karaoke. I mean, it was really a nice event. Like I say, good meal, and they were gonna have ham and eggs or bacon and eggs for breakfast. I mean, everything was good. Yeah, but only one person.
Not for them.
Yeah, I don't like being locked up. And we told them, the doors are gonna be shut, but the doors will be open. Whenever you wanna leave, all you gotta do is shut the door open. But that place was absolutely full of technology. I mean, we had doors we could control from the control room, individual cell doors, all that stuff. I mean, that place was high-tech.
Hard to believe they grew out of it already,
Oh,
they're up
yeah.
the road.
Yeah, it was designed for 10 years. It should last for 10 years. And you guys need to be looking about year 7 or 8 to build on. And we had a flip-flop plan already done. And we filled it up, I think, in 6 years, 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
And commissioners went nuts. Well, not all of them. I mean, that was probably one of the few times I really got, pardon the language, got pissy with the commissioners. Because one of them was just trying to eat me alive, and I said, you're talking to the wrong guy, because he ain't, I know what I need, and I'm gonna do what I gotta do. And they did. We had a little compromise, but it was still, they ended up having to build this, and this is 500 beds. I say, and when I came here, they had 75.
Right.
Big set of numbers, population. Good times. You done with us?
Well, we answered all of the questions that we needed, so if you have anything else you'd like to add as a final thought, otherwise.
No, you just got 2 more out of me. What more do you want?
Well, sometimes it just pulls other thoughts out.
Well, see what happens when Andy walks in.
Right.
Perfect. Well, in that regard, I guess we will conclude this oral history. And we want to thank you, Tom, for coming to talk to us, and Andy as well for coming
Thank
in
you
for
very
the
much,
latter
thanks for
half.
having me over.
So, thank
Come
you
back
so
for a
much.
repeat, huh?
I mean, you are
Sometime
always
soon.
welcome.
Okay.